So I want to break down this Max patch I built for a sound design project I was working on recently. And why I think it's interesting to talk about is that it actually only took me about 10 to 15 minutes to make this, and it did save me a lot of time while I was actually working on a sound design project. So the problem I had was I had been doing these gun shootout scenes in these audiobooks, and it's about 10 minutes roughly of just randomly cutting and pasting a ton of different gunshot sounds to make it sound like a bunch of people randomly shooting guns all over the place. So Max really made a lot of sense to automate this process, and that is what this patch that I'm circling around does. Essentially, I'm using the playlist object here mixed with the earn object and a random delay to have this little tool that I can provide different sounds I want to have played randomly and just hit go and it does the work for me. So I'll play it in, give you a bit of context. So if I hit the start button in each one of these copies of the system, you can hear what I was describing earlier, a bunch of gunshots just kind of going off randomly. So I'll pause each one of these now and I'll explain what's going on in this patch and how it works. The main tool that's being used is the playlist object, and a really neat part of the playlist object is it supports clicking and dragging. So I can actually, in my sound library tool, just browse as I would regularly, and when I find something I like, I can click and drag it into Pro Tools, and I just replaced one of the samples in here. So it's nice, instead of making a message with the read object and file browsing, it's a really intuitive way of working with the playlist object. What's essentially going on in here is once this playlist is playing, every time a sample finishes playing, a done message gets sent, which I am utilizing to trigger this random number sequence object called earn to provide a new random number and play another sample randomly, but in a random sequence as opposed to completely randomly. And why that's important is then we never hear the exact same sample twice. If I open the help file with earn, that'll probably help you understand a little bit better why I'm using that as opposed to random. In the description, outputs random numbers and keeps track of each number that has been generated. When all numbers up to the maximum you set have been output, a bang is sent to the right outlet. So how that's being used in this patch is I hit start, it creates a random number. That random number gets added 1 because playlist is not 0 indexed, it's indexed starting at the number 1. So if I send it a 1, it plays this. Send it a 2, it plays the next, as many files as you have. So when I send a bang to this earn object, it spits out a random number. I add 1 to it. This trigger integer bang, first this bang creates a random number, which sets this pipe object's delay, and then the integer travels through here, through the pipe object. So we can see like a number 5 was just generated. The pipe holds on to it for between 0 and 500 milliseconds based on this random delay we've set. And then it eventually makes its way to the playlist object, which then tells the playlist to play one of the, in this case, 5 samples it has. Once that sample is done playing, a message is sent through this outlet on the playlist object that sends playback notifications. We're using route to just only get messages pertaining to things that are done. Once a sample is done playing, it sends a message to this done object, which eventually just gets turned into a bang, which starts the whole thing over again. What's going on over in this kind of area, this is kind of a little logic system that I built, because without it, what would happen is once this earn object runs through 5 random numbers, it won't provide any more numbers until we hit the clear button. But it does have an outlet right here that once it's done running its sequence of numbers, sends a bang. So we use that bang and pass it through this gate system so that once all the numbers have been used up, we sent that bang travels up here. It clears the earn, which preps it to start providing a new sequence of random numbers. And if we have this gate open via this toggle, that bang then travels back to this start button and just creates this never-ending loop. To stop that loop, it's easy enough. We just turn this toggle off, and to instantaneously stop the whole thing, we just hit the pause button. And then, of course, we've got a gain here sending to the DAC. Playlist is sending its audio through here, and that DAC is what is sending the audio over to Pro Tools. And if I start just this one again, you can kind of see that the gain actually controls how loud it's traveling to Pro Tools. Just give you some kind of context, here's what the finished product ended up sounding like.